Hey guys! Today we are going to make some cinnamon rolls. This is a recipe we've been using for years and years and years. We only make them a few times a year, but tomorrow my husband has off of work for first weekday off of work for the past 6 months about. So I thought we would make something special for him tomorrow for breakfast. So let's get started. All right, first I like to put my 1 cup of milk and 1/3 cup of butter into a cast iron kettle. I set that on the stove on low for about 10 minutes while I'm getting all of my other items ready. We want it to be about 110 degrees, just so it's warmed up enough, but it's not too hot to kill the yeast. To our warm milk and butter, we're going to add 2.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast. That's the equivalent of one of the packets you would buy in the store. So if you only have packets of yeast, it would be 1 packet of yeast. I buy my yeast in very large vacuum sealed packages, so it lasts me quite a while. And I always keep a small jar in the fridge and then the rest of my yeast in the freezer, and it lasts a very, very long time. Next, we'll add 1/2 cup of white sugar to our mixture and give it a good stir. Then we'll let it sit for about 10 minutes and let the yeast bloom. When I first started making this recipe, I actually used a bread machine. So I would put all my wet ingredients in, dry ingredients on top, and I would set the dough cycle, and it would always come out really, really nice. Since then, I have moved on from my bread machine, and I make all of my dough in my Mixmaster, or KitchenAid. Is it a Mixmaster? My KitchenAid stand mixer. So if you do not have a stand mixer, but you do have a bread machine, this will work really great for you too. Our yeast has had a chance to bloom, so now we're going to add 2 room temperature eggs. To our wet mixture, we're going to add 4.5 cups of flour. And 1 teaspoon of salt. All right, I'm gonna mix that on the lowest setting for about 1 minute until it's all incorporated. And then it's gonna be about 2 to 3 minutes on setting number 2. The dough is finished mixing. Now I made a double batch today because I want to freeze a batch of cinnamon rolls so that I can have them in the freezer for another day. We're gonna pull this off of here. There we go. So if you're looking at it and thinking, that's a lot of dough, well, the recipe will only make half this amount of dough. Right, I'm just gonna knead it a few times here to form a nice dough ball. And then I'm gonna place it back in my mixing bowl for about 30 minutes to 60 minutes, depending how long it takes for it to double in size. I've noticed a lot of times with the sweeter doughs, they take a little bit longer to rise. I don't know if it's me or if that's a normal thing, but I'm gonna keep an eye on this, and once it's doubled in size, then we'll roll it out and put our cinnamon and sugar filling in it. I also wanted to show something that I learned recently. I've posted a couple of reels about it and gotten some mixed reviews, but I wanna show why this is important. This KitchenAid we got at our wedding 16 years ago. I've used it many, many times. I can't even count. The first few years of marriage, I didn't use it quite as much, but now having 6 kids, I use it at least once a day. So this metal ring on the older machines pops off, and look at that. My dough got a little squirrely on me and went up underneath that ring. When I first realized that this could come off, it was really bad. it was really, really gross. It catches oil. You can see that there's screws here. If you run your machine too hard and you can hear it struggling and it's getting warm, it will actually leak grease from inside the machine down through these screw holes. And if this wasn't here, it would go into whatever you're mixing up. It is important to take it off and clean under it because, well, if there's a lot of gunk in there, if it got in, it could come back out. And I really don't want that in my food. So I'm going to get a rag and give this a good wipe down because she's special to me. At this point, all my little chickens came in from playing outside, so I had to switch over to a little bit quieter way of explaining the rest of this. Sometimes I need to sprinkle a little flour on the countertop if the dough is a little bit sticky, but today it was fairly pliable and smooth. If yours is feeling a little tacky, definitely sprinkle a little flour down on your working surface. There's no exact measurements for when I roll this out. I would say it's about 12 by 18. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. Just kind of depends on how the dough is behaving. As I roll it out, I try to pay attention and keep the sides as even as possible, but I'm not perfect and it's not going to be perfect either. Once you have your dough rolled out, you're going to want to melt 1/3 cup butter and start to assemble your cinnamon and sugar filling. I did not have any brown sugar, so I had to mix some up. It's pretty easy to do. You just take 1 cup of sugar and add about 2 teaspoons of molasses. If you like it a little bit darker, add another teaspoon. Otherwise, that's a pretty good ratio for the most part. Then we'll want to add 2 tablespoons of cinnamon to our brown sugar and give it a real good mix. After we have that mixed up, we're going to take our melted butter and spread it out evenly all over the surface of the dough. I like to be sure to get all the way to the edges, all the way around, because as you're rolling it up, that helps the cinnamon and sugar stick to it so it doesn't fall out the ends of the roll. Now we'll just take that mixture and sprinkle it evenly all over the dough. Once I get it all scooped onto the dough, I do like to take my hands and move it around a little bit. Just kind of helps evenly disperse it. Be sure to spread the cinnamon and brown sugar mixture all the way over to the edges because you don't want to be the person that doesn't get any filling in your cinnamon roll. You're going to start to roll up one of the long ends, just curling it as tightly as you can all the way across, keeping it even as you go. You can see I'm working my way from one end to another, trying my best to keep it even as my little helpers help to clean up the counter. And once you get it rolling pretty well, you can usually just kind of take your hands and scoot it like this, and it rolls up pretty quick. Once it's all rolled up, I do like to squish it a little bit to help kind of push the dough together a little bit so that it doesn't come apart. The easiest way I've found to get even slices is to first cut the roll in half and then to cut each half in half. So you have 4 pieces. And then you're going to cut each fourth into 3 pieces. And that will give you 12 nice even slices. Go ahead and butter your pan that you're going to be using. I love these Pyrex style pans from IKEA. They're actually a little bit larger than a 9 by 13. I believe they're 10 by 14. And for a big family like us, that little bit of extra space in a pan really does go a long way. I'm going to put them in rows of 3 here, and we'll cover them with a towel and let them rise for another 30 to 60 minutes. These are baked at 400 degrees for about 15 to 18 minutes. And when they come out, they are absolutely beautiful. What we use to frost our cinnamon rolls is somewhere between icing and buttercream. I like to take about 5 tablespoons of butter and whip it up in my stand mixer until it is creamy and soft and sticking to the sides of the bowl. My house was pretty chilly this morning, so the butter was a little bit harder than I had hoped, but we made do. To this, we're going to add 2 cups of powdered sugar and turn the mixer on low so that it can start to incorporate. Once that has started to work itself together, I'll turn up the mixer a little bit just so it can get nice and incorporated. Then I add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and then I use about 3/4 of a cup of heavy whipping cream. You might need a little bit more, you might need a little bit less, so start with half of a cup and work your way up from there. I like it to be a little bit thicker than icing, but not quite as thick and fluffy as buttercream. I think it has a really nice consistency to it. It melts really well in the cinnamon rolls, but it doesn't completely melt off of each roll and onto your plate. It really sticks to the cinnamon roll. Now that is looking like the perfect consistency. If you try it, please share with me how you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments section what your favorite thing is to bake during the fall. Happy baking!